Okay, so thanks for coming, ladies and gentlemen, and distinguished guests, UN members, civil society, and PwC. On behalf of UN Women, Empower Women, and PwC partners and myself, we welcome you to this special event. We have a very exciting lineup for you, and I would like to especially thank our moderator and our panelists that are spread across this facility today, and for taking time to be part of this discussion. Many of you are attending the 60th Commission on the Status of Women, so I know that you've been having a long day and a busy day, moving around from meetings to meetings, so we appreciate you being here. But we do feel that this event is going to be a very different kind of event. It's going to show some really important things. It's also going to talk about how we have already affected some kind of change, but we still have more to do. As you all know, gender inequality exists in the world, and it's something that's going to take time to solve. And we hope that this event will help you further understand some of the steps that we have taken, along with Empower Women and other folks, in trying to shorten that inequality gap. Okay? So, some statistics I want to talk about. Assuming we go at the current pace of how we're progressing as a society, statistically, it'll take up to 2095, and all of you know this, 2095 before we get true gender equality in the world. I think I won't be around for that, and I'm sure that all of you are impatient. We want to make sure that we do it faster than that. So as you know, that the UN came up with the 17 SDGs in September, and the UN Women, Empower Women is definitely aligned to the 17 SDGs. So our goal is to find a way to accelerate that. And why is that important? As you know that, as you all sit here, many of us are here from corporations like ourselves, and many of you are working for nonprofits and other organizations. And if you look at your organizations, and we all try our best, but if you think about it, you look at the organization, you see that as we climb up the hierarchy in our corporate world, our organization, there are less and less women. And that's a fact, and it's something that we need to change. You also can look at the child-bride marriage situation. It's accelerating at an alarming rate. In fact, one statistic that came out was that by 2050, in Africa alone, it's going to double from 125 million girls to 310 million girls by 2050 alone. So we're already up against a pretty big obstacle right there. And the other part of this is that, in the technology space, when we have women entrepreneurs looking for venture capitalist money to fund them for their ideas and businesses, they have less success than men do. Entrepreneurs actually have a better success rate in getting seed money for their businesses versus women. So you couple these three examples of three different situations in the corporate world, where we have pretty good parity at the junior levels, but when you get to the higher levels, it's more men in the boardrooms, more men on the C levels. Then you look at the situation around the world where girls are being taken advantage of for social reasons, for economic reasons, for reasons that have no excuses. And then you look at how women want to be successful in the world, and they have these great ideas, but they are up against walls because of the biases that exist, whether they're intentional biases or unintentional biases. So we need to act now. We must act now. And this event today will introduce how technology, if used properly, can help make this happen and can help accelerate it. And it will help empower girls, women, and men. This event is not just about women. It's about women, girls, because they're the future. And it's about men also, because men, like ourselves, will get further education on how to bring about gender equality, but also need the help too, because depending on where they are. So we want to do this to break the mold, and we want to start accelerating, like I said. We want to instill the confidence in the women. We want to instill confidence in girls to make this happen. So as I said, technology is a big part of this, right? So what we've done is, and you're going to learn more about this, that the new empowerwomen.org, and many of you may not have gone to the empowerwomen.org website, but the new one is out there. It's been live since early Friday morning. Yes, we're up many nights making sure it goes up. And at 2 o'clock in the morning on Friday morning, US Eastern Time, it went live. And there are many people in this room who made this happen. And if you have been to the old empowerwomen.org website, it's a completely different experience you're going to have. It's an experience that is intuitive, it's collaborative, it allows you to find information quickly, and it draws you in. And that's exactly what we need to do, is draw you in. And once we draw you in, we hope that you then become the champions that we need to get the message out to the other people out there. So our ask of you, and by the way, that's the reason why we're calling this event Breakthrough Technologies and Innovations that Empower Women, because we have decided as PwC, partnering with Empower Women and using technology to bring about gender equality. So what's our ask of you? Our ask is very simple. Become members of Empower Women. Go to the website. I know that some of you do not have Wi-Fi, so it's a little bit, but, and you can blame me for that. But when you do have access, go to the website, empowerwomen.org. And if you like what you're seeing, become a member. And then we need you to bring that passion and support you have at the CSW. Bring that to empowerwomen.org. They're looking for champions. They're looking for people to be part of the community. We want you to educate yourself by reading all the collateral that's sitting in empowerwomen.org. When you go in there, you're going to find tons of information. But what we've done now is we've made it easier to access that information. And you can find information that you can use in your communities, in your countries, in your organizations. And then we want to continue to have the dialogue. It's not a dialogue that should be stopped, it's a dialogue that needs to continue. So we want you to continue that. So we have a very exciting agenda that will end with a reception, and that's something to look forward to as always, and after having a long day. Our exciting agenda will start with a viewing of a documentary called Code. And it's a documentary that exposes the lack of female and minority representation in the tech space, especially in software development. And we picked this documentary specifically because, again, our theme, keep in mind, is all about technology. How do we use technology to bring about gender equality and empowering women? And this documentary is a very eye-opening documentary that's out there that we're going to be showing shortly once I finish talking. And Code raises a question that I would like you all to keep in mind. What would society gain from having more women and minorities code or do software development? Something to keep in mind. Our panelists and our moderator will be using that theme and many other themes to have the conversation today. So enjoy the documentary. I look forward to our panelists having a great conversation. We have a Q&A session. Please ask all the questions you may have, and then of course there'll be follow-through because it's always never enough time, right? One last request I have is from the social media perspective. We would like to have a discussion about the event. We would like you to be tweeting, linking, using LinkedIn, whatever social media you use. Of course, you have to have access, so we have access, but later on you can do it. The two hashtags we would like you to use are hashtag driving change and hashtag empower women. And we're tracking that, and we appreciate your time, and thank you very much.
What a great movie. So thank you again for the organizers and for Arvid for organizing this. And thank you for my panelists here. This movie won 7 awards. It has been screened in the White House and also is now being viewed across the country in many institutions and schools and so on. So it's a great opportunity that we got to see it definitely present a big issue, right? I totally agree with the last comment there that coding is not just a profession of coding. You can do everything with coding because software is going to be in everything that we do going forward. So just think about the opportunities, and if we are encouraging girls and women to get into that profession, we are opening a whole new world of opportunities that is not just around computer science. So very exciting here. So the panel today, we have great panelists. You have the bio in your program. So I would like to just quickly go through the panelists and then we'll jump right into questions. We will have a chance at the end for you to ask questions. So as we go through the panel, please think about questions that you might want to ask. I feel like I'm sitting in my back there. Maybe we can rearrange a little bit. All right, so we have Fereshteh Forough, and she's the founder and CEO of Code to Inspire, We have Ramcess Jean-Louis. He's the Director of Workforce Diversity for Comcast and NBCUniversal. We have Kristin, Hetle, and she's the Director of Strategic Partnership Division for the UN Women. And we have Mitra, who is a fellow PwC partner with me, and she's in charge of innovation in the US. So we have quite a great panel. What I would like to start with, really quickly, if you can say, why is this conversation important to you? And what would be one thing that you think we can do based on the movie that kind of turn a light bulb in your head? So why is this conversation important?
Sure, so coming from a country like Afghanistan, which is really a traditional country, and women really face a lot of issues, especially in case of technology and education. And half of the population of Afghanistan is considered are women. So I think that's very important to engage women, especially increase the number of women in education and technology, as later on they can be a great part of the workforce, and they can contribute to the country's economy, and they can actually help the country to really grow and create more job opportunities.
And that goes back to empower women, right?
Exactly.
The theme of, and we heard that in the movie as well. Ramcess?
Thanks. Well, first I'd like to say, thank you for having me and thank you for organizing this event. I am very honored to be sitting up here with all of these accomplished women. So thank you. I really enjoyed the film. This was my first time watching it. So empower women is important to me for a variety of reasons. As an African-American man and as a son of Haitian immigrants, inclusion is something that's very important to me. I wouldn't be here but for all of the women in my life that have mentored me, my mom, my 4 sisters, and just professional women overall. So Dr. King said something one time that if all of us are not free, then none of us are free. I believe the same thing goes with equality. If all of us do not have equality, then none of us have equality. So inclusion is important, inclusion wins. So specifically, what can we do from looking at this movie? I think from a Comcast NBCUniversal perspective, we're very smart. We're partnering with PwC. So one of the initiatives that we have is that we're actually going to do multiple screenings of this film in different cities so that we can actually engage our current employee population. We want to engage our tech women chapters, but we also want to engage our men audience as well, because this is important for men to watch and observe and see. So this way we can have allies as we continue to push forward.
Thank you, and I'd like to, as my fellow panelists, thank you for organizing this, and it's great to see so many people in the room in a late evening, in a busy week. Why is this, I thought this movie was incredibly interesting. It brought, for me, it reminded me of 2 things, and one is that that we tend to, we tend to look at women as the problem, or women have to adapt, or women have to find their voice, and women have to do this and to do that. This depicts an environment where it becomes very clear that no, it's actually the environment that has to change. It cannot always be on the women for them to change and to adapt. The environment needs to adapt to actually, for women to thrive and to find their place. And to do that, the one thing is really, yes, culture change and all of that, but leadership from the top is extremely important. And I thought the Etsy example that we saw, there's one man who made a decision and now is looking at a growth from 3 to 30% of women, women engineers, women coders in his company. Shows that it can be done, the women can do it, that's for one, but you need that leadership from the top. And I want that little enthusiastic girl who said, I want to be part of the next big thing, for her to actually be part of the next big thing and not to be bullied out of the next big thing.
The film brought back a lot of memories. I'm one of the computing women from the late 80s. And when I graduated from college, there were about 30% women who had the computer science degree, and that had already fallen down from the 40% earlier in the decade. So the film brought back a lot of bittersweet memories for me going through engineering school as sometimes the only girl in the class and later one of very few women in the workforce. But this topic is really important to me personally as a woman. I deal with the topic of gender equality on a daily basis, as I'm sure most women here will agree. It's not always malicious. It's not always, we saw a lot of bullying and some negative things going on. A lot of it is unconscious biases, and biases that women have themselves. So for me, the film brought back a lot of good points that you kind of internalize and are not in the front of your mind on a daily basis, and makes me want to be more active. So it definitely activated me a little bit more.
So Mitra, I'll ask you a follow-up question. When you say about the biases that you find in the workforce, how do you think women needs to think differently? And in your line of work, thinking about innovation and the future of technology, do you think that some of those innovations can help us think differently?
Well, I think that both radical and sort of incremental innovations need to take place for all of us to get to a different place. And the most important for me is dramatic change in access to technology. And if you think about starting to teach girls at a very young age to code, that's a big responsibility and an imperative, as we saw, because software is going to be underlying almost everything, as you said so. And secondly is providing those tools and resources for girls and women to have choices in their lives. It really broadens. I think the Pixar director of photography, she said it best. She said, it's not just a vertical in computer science. It opens up thousands of opportunities when you're in software. So in the workforce, I think as women, we have biases, as you saw in the film. I'm not good enough to do this, I'm not smart enough to do this. In meetings, I say something, but then 10 minutes later, somebody else says it, and he happens to be a man, and like, you didn't hear me say it 10 minutes ago. So those things happen, and I think the more access we have to technology, the more empowered we are as women, and the more empowered we are, I think we can make the workplace a much better place.
So, Fereshteh, following up on what Mitra was saying, how technology is so ubiquitous and it's everywhere. In Code to Expire, how are you using social media to get girls into coding? And tell us a little bit about what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as a person that found the first coding school in Afghanistan for girls, I really felt so upset when I was studying computer science. So I was born as a refugee, as an Afghan refugee in Iran during the USSR invasion to Afghanistan. Then I went to Afghanistan 1 year after the Taliban regime collapsed. So it was really a very strange environment in case of women's accessing education. But I was able to get my bachelor degree in computer science, and then I went to Germany and I got my master's in computer science. I went back to Afghanistan and I taught as a computer science professor for almost 3 years in computer science faculty. So during this all journey that I had in education, it was very upsetting to see that definitely Afghanistan has a more strong male-dominated culture and traditions, and a lot of families are very conservative about women's education, job employment. So one aspect is that, yes, the number of women are very less in technology, but the other aspect is that the women always are putting down. You're a woman, you're supposed to only be at home and cook and bring babies. So this is what's very upsetting, because at the end of the story, a lot of all my classmates that we graduated from the same faculty, they ended up not doing anything, or they just become a teacher, because being a teacher is a well-respected job in Afghanistan and get paid and you only deal with women. So not a lot of women can travel, so it's a big issue, the mobility of women, if you want to find a job. So what I thought is that definitely technology and living in this world is that if you have a computer and internet connections, you can do anything you want without being worried, my family won't let me to travel, the security is not good, Taliban gonna find out. So what you can do is that with the coding school that we established in Herat, at the first coding school, is we really provide a secure environment for the girls. It's very fun. We want to really teach them to boost their self-esteem, but also learn how to code. And they feel comfortable, they come and we teach them different curriculums. And then after that, we try to find them job opportunities. So they use our equipment, they do the job online, and they get paid. So I think it's an empowering, it's an empowering thing. The technology really helps underserved community and people to raise their voice and to be independent.
Yeah, that's a great point. And Kristin, something you mentioned earlier is that it takes leadership in order to make a big change. And I've been in PwC, in the company I worked before, and what I've heard, even talking to some big companies outside of Silicon Valley, there is a huge focus on STEM, a huge focus on recruiting diverse talent into technology, definitely in programming, and still feels like the progress is slow. So how do you think about that? And from your perspective, what is missing?
Well, I think, first of all, when you studied, and there was around 40–30%, that is what we call, what research shows is kind of the critical mass, meaning that if you are, like one example here in the movie, if you're just the one single woman in a male-dominated environment, or if you're the one single who stands out, who's different, let me put it that way, it's very hard for you to make an impact on that environment. It's the environment that kind of defines how it's supposed to be. And the critical mass is kind of agreed is around 30% and more, of course, but by that, then you have that much bigger, better possibility of influencing the environment, of setting the standards yourself, of being, being part of shaping the premises for what goes on. But I would like to address something else. Fereshteh, I think I'm so impressed by what you have done. And you come from a part of the world, and Afghanistan is maybe a country in so many aspects is really striving to get from the bottom and up. There's so many things are difficult, but we see it's not just a gender divide in the tech industry. There's also a north-south divide, a poor-rich divide, and it's so important when we look towards the future. I think, just like we know that there is the literacy in the traditional sense is a big problem. But the next level of literacy or illiteracy, I think, is actually speaking about being able to code or not, having that, we're talking about the Sustainable Development Goals, that we want a different world by 2030. I think in 2030, you are just as illiterate if you cannot code as if you cannot write your name in the traditional sense. And so many countries, Afghanistan included, they are already behind in terms of the traditional literacy, in terms of of girls and women having access to education, having access, full stop. So since we're moving towards an ICT-based society in every way conceivable, there's really a requirement for accelerated investment in women and girls' education and training, with a particular focus on the poorer countries, the countries that are the farthest left behind in this respect. And actually research in 102 countries shows that only 2 countries had at least as many women and men graduates in engineering and only 30 had attained gender parity in science at university level. And beyond that, we have, as I described, we have a situation where many countries, the divide is huge, both geographically, between genders, between rich and poor. So, yeah, a lot of investment has to be done to get where we want to be in only 15 years from now.
I know I was looking at the book before, and I was telling Ramcess, it said by 2030, and I said, it's such a long time. But then you think about it, it's 14 years from now. We're in 2016, it's right around the corner.
Yeah.
So, Ramcess, one thing you mentioned earlier was that this is not just a woman issue, it's not just a diversity issue. There are men that have to also be part of the solution here. And one thing that we talked about a few months ago is the blind spots that we have, the mental models that we have, the things that you mentioned earlier that we do just because we don't think about it. It's just the way we've been either brought up or the way society make us think about. So in your work as a diversity leader for a marquee company, how do you engage men in the gender diversity issue, and what are some maybe tips you can give us as women and men in the audience on how to engage people to think beyond their blind spots?
That's an excellent question, and I think some of the things we kind of mentioned at the panel today in terms of when you take a look at unconscious bias, there's a lot of talks about it, there's a lot of training, and it's something that's important, it's something that we do at our organization. Our response to how do you make diversity a core part of the business, and our response to unconscious bias is conscious inclusion. So, that question is a question that comes up in the business all the time. And a lot of times it's probably not through resistance, and it's not through ignorance. It's generally people don't really know how. They don't know how to do it, and they're looking for guidance. So it's important from a diversity and inclusion perspective to actually be able to go and sit down with hiring managers and consult to the business, to have a conversation with them, to find out, what are your pain points? What's keeping you up at night? How is it that we can help you? How is it that we can support you? And you listen, and you take it all in, and then the obvious answer is, well, if you have these problems and you have these hurdles, you need more women on your team. You need to do some more hiring. And the response that you may get sometimes is, well, what if I don't have any headcount? If I don't have any headcount this year or this term, I can't really have an impact. Well, yes, you can, because again, it's diversity and inclusion. And the inclusion part is very important. So let's take a look at your department. Ask the right questions in terms of, well, how many mentoring relationships are taking place within your department? How many sponsorship relationships are taking place? When was the last time you've given a stretch assignment? And if you do give stretch assignments, who are you giving the stretch assignments to? Let's take a look at that. Are you encouraging participation in our employee resource groups? Are you encouraging participation in the tech women chapters? Are you taking on a role as an executive champion for our employee resource groups? Are you participating in panels? So there's a lot of different ways that men can actually be allies.
Do you get resistance?
Not particularly. I mean, again, we have diversity goals and we have aspirational goals, and we make it clear throughout the organization that we want to make sure that we want to look like America. We want to be 50% women and 33% people of color. But just like America, of course, within a large organization, over 100,000 employees, you have everything. So, there's no overt resistance, but I think it's more of looking for guidance, and it's, hiring managers have certain deadlines, and they need to kind of understand how it's going to help them. So having the conversation in terms of, well, it's the right thing to do, morally it's the right thing to do, that may not resonate. So maybe you need to approach it a different way. Maybe you need to approach it in terms of, when you have a diverse team, you have better decision making. When you encourage people at work to bring their authentic self to work each and every day, people will be fully present. When you have people who are fully present, they will be all in. When they're all in, they will be fully engaged. And we all know the benefits of having employees that are engaged. When employees are engaged, they can give 150%, they can spend extra hours, they'll do whatever they need to get the job done, and they're happier. It's a happier workplace. So if you approach it from that angle, sometimes you can kind of help them bridge the gap.
And measurements help, right? It helps guide the message.
Absolutely. We have a holistic approach to diversity and inclusion overall. We have 5 major departments. we have a governance department which is responsible for tracking and reporting. With tracking and reporting, you can't improve what you don't measure. In workforce diversity and inclusion, we manage our employee resource groups, and we look at that as portals for inclusion. We have 8 different ERGs, employee resource groups, and anyone is able to join any employee resource group at any time. So just because it's a women's network or the African American network or the Asian Pacific network, anyone can be a part of it. So do you sometimes get the response, well, why don't we have a white male network? Sometimes you get that, but we're trying to account for something right now. We're trying to make adjustments. We don't have a shortage of white men in the workforce, but you have to be prepared to take those questions.
I heard once somebody asking that question, and the answer was, you have a white man network, it's called both.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. But in addition to workforce, we have supply diversity, which we're doing really good in that space. We're part of the $1 billion roundtable, which means we spend over $1 billion with women-owned organizations. So we're very proud of that. There's only about 20 or so organizations who's been abducted into the $1 billion roundtable, and we're the only entertainment and media company in that space. We also have community investment. We partner with a lot of STEM organizations and programming. It's important to make sure that we have diverse talent both in front of the camera and behind the camera as well.
So Mitra, Kristin was talking about 2030 and where we're going, and at PwC we did a lot of work about the mega trends. And I wanted to ask you, maybe you can describe the mega trends that we are working on, but also tell us about how do you think technology will help empowering women as you think about those mega trends, and how those mega trends will advance or be a disadvantage to women?
Well, megatrends are basically big trends that we see that are going to be happening now and in the future, and it's a great sort of guidepost for us to triangulate what the future is going to look like and be prepared for that future. So things like rapid urbanization, scarcity of resources, the economic power shift from west to east, these are megatrends that we're looking at, studying, and basing sort of our future on those trends. And I think a lot of those are actually very linked and connected with each other, and they're all definitely packed with opportunities and challenges. Like you said, advantages or disadvantages. So, if you think about, let's say the economic shift from west to east. And I think technology, as Fereshteh said, can empower women in a country or in countries where gender equality is really at its bottom. It's the inequalities are egregious. So you can see technology playing a role in bringing out women from behind the veils and walls and veneers that are excluding them from society, and then they're actually able to reach the world. And I actually think we're going to see a lot of incredible game-changing innovations coming from the emerging economies. As necessity will be the mother of invention, we'll see a lot of we'll see technology playing a role in solving food resources, energy, creating new e-commerce sort of platforms of the future. I think the women of Africa are going to be instrumental in creating a successful continent. I think the women of the Middle East, as we've seen a rising number of women-owned technology startups, and I'm keeping my fingers crossed for radical change in the Middle East with women coming into power. And I think if we're given a chance, women can actually make the world a better place. And we're excluding almost half the population from inventing the future. So I think it's a good thing for us all to be engaged, not just for women, but for all of us.
So Fereshteh, the women that went through Inspired to Code, what's their story? How do they think they can change the world?
Sure. So what we did first, what I really believe is that for kind of like living in a country like Afghanistan, the very important thing is you do have to gain the trust of the community and families, because when you tell the people that we are going to teach your girls how to code and access internet, they think, we are not sure if we want our daughter to learn that, because they think internet is a devil thing. So it's just like, first we have to convince the families that it's really actually helps the daughter to learn something and generate certain amount of revenue, and that she can help the family as well. So she can be like a kind of like help and a source for the family. So what we did actually, we went to each school and we talked to the girls in the schools, which we have right now 55 girls in our coding school, 30 from high school and 25 from computer science degree. So we talked to the girls and we explained how it really is empowering and changing to be online and to work, and we had actually 150 applicants first, and they really wanted to be in our coding school, and we selected top 55 in our coding school. So what we really try is that we try to have like guest lectures for them every week. We try to find people here, especially women who were in tech and they want to share their stories with our girls. So in this case, they hear stories from other women around the world. They become inspired, and they understand that actually being online and building your own career, it's very empowering and inspiring. We actually last week we did the first hackathon or code fest for women in Afghanistan with Code to Inspire, and what we really got is that the girls competed with each other developing websites. And they did an amazing job, and they feel so happy about it. And we see a very rapid growth of learning. I think it's just like sad that it's the matter of resources and giving the same opportunity. Because just to mention, based on my experience, when I had a software company in Afghanistan and we were going and telling people that we can help you with designing your website, developing an app for you, the customers, which are mainly men, and they look at you and go like, we don't think women can do that. So where does it look? So it was very difficult to convince them that there's no difference, because they think that men actually develop better websites, which I think women are way better in designing than men. So that's also like difficult for us to, because we're struggling with two different things. One is to convince the girls come and learn coding, and it's something empowering, and the other aspect is the whole community against like women in technology and not giving an opportunity. So we try to convince the other side as well that actually if women participate, it's going to be a growing market for everyone. And again, as you mentioned, the financial inclusion is very important. The Afghanistan population is very young, and all of the women are very talented, but unfortunately we don't have enough resources for them. And I personally think that technology is definitely a very empowering tool for getting women online and do whatever they want and be part of the global economy and raise their voice.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, and before you follow up, just think about your questions, because after Kristin, we're going to go to you for questions.
I'd just like to follow up on that, because access to technology and the platforms that exist is important. Also, if you're not going to be a coder, not everyone's going to be a coder, but to be able to use the technology that we now have for learning, for example, empowerwomen.org, which thanks to the generous support of PwC, we've been able to now revamp and we're kind of launching it tonight actually, although it's been up and running for a few days, is a very simple platform and an easy access platform for women to exchange, to learn from one another, to build businesses. The focus of the website is economic empowerment, but it facilitates this community over almost 190 countries. I think it's around 190 countries, and we have over 500,000 users, and we hope and we see that growing. And it also provides learning how to build your business, and it's kept in a way that doesn't require that you have a heavy academic background to be able to access it. And we partnered with, speaking of technology companies, we partnered also with Facebook for a learning program that is in 8 languages, and again, thanks to PwC, it's now we're now adding a language, Mandarin, so we're going to be able to reach a few million people there, I think. And so this is part of the work and the mandate of UN Women to try to reach those who are the farthest behind, those who have the least access to formal schooling, formal resources, or money and other resources, and to provide this access. And for example, the I Learn program is accessible through your old-fashioned mobile phone, which is still, the go-to technology in many poorer countries. So I encourage you to go and look what Empowered Women actually provides and share it with networks for whom you think it could be useful.
Any questions? We have a question over there.
Thank you. My name is Nyara Zomashemabe. I'm from Zimbabwe. I work with girls and young women, and it excites me, and I'm very happy that I attended this session because not only us as leaders is it something that seems almost unreachable to us. Sometimes we don't know where to start because maybe we are also marginalized as leaders as well who are already working with young women. So attending this session kind of helped me. My question that is a follow-on question is, how do we make, for instance, girls in Zimbabwe in rural communities be able to respond to opportunities that sometimes are called for, that are usually we see innovative competitions for young girls and young women to respond to. But we're looking at young girls who are even deeper in rural communities. How do we bridge the gap between the fact that globally young women and girls are actually not participating in technology, and worse for those girls in deep rural communities where they probably don't know what a smartphone is. So how do we make the ground level for the girls?
Maybe you have some good examples of that. I mean, how do you actually bring girls in settings where they don't have easy access to a computer? How do you reach out? How do you get them involved? Yeah.
So talking about our program, we actually try to focus mainly on big cities because it's definitely a very advanced topic about women and technology and coding, and certainly looking about the cities in Afghanistan. One of the very main important factors for us is that if we want to be in a city to have the coding school, we should have access to sort of stable electricity and internet connections because it's really important for the infrastructure and running our coding school. But I think what is really, I also got the experience from my other foundation that I founded, which we built 12 media labs, and we connected 50,000 girls to our network to internet. It's that it's word of mouth, like, because it's also like thinking about Afghanistan community is very family-based. So once they see that one family, they like something or they encourage something, the family is going and talk to the other family about whatever the girl is doing. So it's very like community-based communications. So we really try to make a very trusted, reliable relationship with the families. So what we did actually, we said that to the girls that we write a letter of agreement, and we told the girls, show it to your family and tell the family that what is this school about. And then we try that every 2 weeks we have a couple of the families, like brothers, or we actually try more to have the men coming to our coding school, like the brothers, the fathers, to come and see what are the girls doing. And we got a lot of good feedbacks. A lot of the brothers and the fathers, they came, and once they see and they feel comfortable that their daughter come to this place, and it's really like encouraging them, and so they become so interested, and we hear that they recommended us to another family. So it's for us and for a community like Afghanistan, it's really important to build a very trustful and good relationship with the families and communities, because they really help you a lot, and they can be like your support against the extremists and people who are against empowering women with education.
So you're using social media at all?
Yes, we use the social media definitely to promote our work, and we do have a social media class which we teach the girls how to use Twitter and LinkedIn, because what we really think is that one is also that how the girls can communicate with other people around the world. Use LinkedIn as a professional way to tell the world, hey, I'm from Afghanistan, I know how to do HTML, CSS, I design website. If you need a freelancer, you can hire. And the Twitter to interact with people, just exchange ideas. So I definitely believe on the power of social media in case of exchanging the ideas and really getting other people on board on what you're doing. And other people can help you a lot by spreading the word and telling your story to the other people.
Some of the things.
There's a question over there. Oh, sorry.
I just wanted to finish with the answer to the question. I think that something Kristin said earlier about literacy being redefined, that in 15 or 20 years, if you don't know how to code, then you're sort of classified as illiterate. You didn't say that exactly, but you meant it. And so I think in reaching the communities that are rural, that technology needs to be part of the education process. So it needs to be an integral, basic part of what girls and boys alike are learning. And it can't be a separate thing, because then it's a lot more difficult to engage them and do all of that sort of rounding up and creating new infrastructure and new groups to help with that. So I think that would be my best shot at that.
Ramcess, you wanted to add something?
Sure. One of the things that I would add is that what we do at Comcast, we get involved in some different organizations, and there's an organization called Hour of Code, where you actually go into the schools and you actually work with children and kind of teach them the code, and they have tons of statistics in terms of exposing children at a young age to coding makes it much more likely that they would be more interested in learning more and realize how easy it is and it's not that difficult. So you kind of help them get over that hurdle. So there's Hour of Code, there's also Adopt a School and those different programs. But in addition to that, I've also been in discussions with folks where, you know, they have a 2-year-old and they're like, well, I want to get them into tech. What do I need to do? How do we teach them code? And, you know, again, the secret sauce is, why don't we do the same thing we do with boys? You know, you hear conversations of, you know, sometimes a parent will have a little computer game or a video game, they'll give it to a boy, but they'll give a girl a doll. So we have to just be mindful of that. I think the way to kind of pull people in is the same way that we've done it before. If it seems fun, if it's a video game, they're more inclined to kind of want to continue to play with those gadgets.
We have a question there, and then here.
Okay, my name is Ebere Ubesi from Nigeria. I want to thank you for organizing this program because I'm actually very much interested in technology. I'm back home, been struggling, trying to see how women can actually be involved when it comes to new technology, and a lot of us shy away from it. Now, my question is, first and foremost, I want to ask the question about the learning program you have on Facebook, the one that is in 8 languages. How does it work? How can we access it? Because I would like to share it, and I would like to know what it's all about so that I can talk about it when I get home. And then secondly, I was worried when I learned that the program you're running is mostly in big cities. Because a lot of rural areas actually have electricity, and they have network to hook onto the internet. That means they can access all this. And I'm happy when you talked about the fact that we can go to the schools and get children to know about this, because I work with secondary schools, I work with high schools in my country, and I also work with the rural women. And I don't know if you have programs that we can work out at home to get to those children in their different schools and educate them and actually teach them how to code. I, as a person, has been interested in coding for long, but I haven't been taught. So if I can even access it on Facebook, I would love to do that so that I can teach others.
I can quickly answer on the iLearn program on Facebook. If you go to empowerwomen.org, you will find a repository there of all the resources available, and including that program. So start there, and you'll find other things as well in the process that I'm sure you'll find interesting. But you'll find it there.
And the website is new now, so it's easy to follow.
Yes, yes. The website is new and so much more intuitive and better to navigate. So yeah, it's very exciting.
But please.
I'm Nandita Shah from India, and the question and also responding to what she was saying, I think that the frustration girls have around anything to do with STEM starts very early, and that's what our experience is. That everything to do with technology is very early on, and people have been told that you don't know maths, so you can't do it. So I think that some amount of input has to be not just about coding, but about science and technology is something that we need to begin much earlier. And our experience is that even things like technology, like community video, has opened up another world for women. So, just technology of different kind, how do we expose girls and women to technology of different kind? But the biggest challenge I see in our context is that we have a lot of engineers, women, but how many of them are actually able to survive in the market later on? And how do we bring the whole idea of sharing of housework and share the load, which is the campaign we have recently done with Ariel and P&G. So trying to say that unless we have responsible parenting together, that otherwise the load of running the house is always on women, and how do they survive in the labor market for the long term. So I think that's a challenge, and I would really like to know how each of you are trying to do that in your own firms.
Mitra is dying to answer. I will tell you that challenge is not just for coding and computer science and STEM, right? This is a universal challenge.
And Sigal and I often talk about how much time did we not have this week to do all the things that we're supposed to do outside of work. But being in the private sector, I know that what happens around mid-management promotion level is that there's an exodus of women. So you were alluding to, we have software engineers, but they sort of don't move up the promotion ladder. And that happens to coincide with the time in our lives where most women are interested in expanding their families and having children. So access to technology in a way that enables you to be flexible, to be the boss of your own schedule, to own your own hours, is something for everyone, because then it not only makes the women have more time and flexibility in their schedule, but the men that are in their lives can also benefit from that flexibility and take some of that burden out of the paid work environment and share that with women. I know Melinda Gates is shining a huge spotlight on this around the superpower. I think she said, if I had a superpower, I wanted to have more time. And then she started thinking about, how come all the women are, burdened with not just the work that gets paid, but all this other work that no one pays us for, and we're supposed to do that. And how do we engage men in sharing that workload? So.
Ramcess, maybe you can follow up, because I'm sure you see that your company, that women are leaving the workforce right at that time when they're starting families, and what does your company do in order to get them engaged and stay?
And that is correct. Retention is an area of opportunity for us as well. So, we're very excited that we want to brand Comcast to be the beacon for women in technology, and we want to attract, because again, the big thing is attract, train, retain. But if we're spending all this time trying to attract, the question is, well, what are we doing for the women in technology now that's kind of in-house? So we crowdsource through our women's network and through our Tech Women chapters to kind of talk about some of these issues. Let's take a look at our benefits package. Let's see how we can create a little bit more flexibility. So that's the approach that we're taking to kind of address it. And there's still, we're making some progress. There's still a lot more that we can do.
Yeah. And at PwC as well, we have been talking a lot about flexibility and some other programs in order to get, the women accountants or tax accountants or consultants also stay. I think we need to wrap up. I'm getting the sign. I want to thank the panel. You've done a great job. Thank you. I know some people probably with some questions.